मिशन कंट्रोल कम इन मिशन कंट्रोल आई कैन हियर यू. हमें आगे से लेफ्ट जाना है राइट जाना है. आपका राइट हमारा राइट. हेलो मिशन कंट्रोल. ब्रो लॉस्ट कांटेक्ट विद मिशन.
व्हाट्स अप माय फैम. तो आज हमारी स्पेसशिप अटक चुकी है. हमें यहाँ से लेफ्ट जाना चाहिए राइट. प्लीज पुट इट डाउन इन द कमेंट्स. एंड
वो वाईफाई डेटा तू खा रहा है. पर्सनल काम के लिए ऑफिस का कनेक्शन. ओह
ब्रो आई हैव टू ना. सोशल मीडिया पे थोड़ी सी स्पॉन्सर कमिटमेंट्स है.
अच्छा तो तू फ्रीलांस करता है.
ऑफ कोर्स ब्रो. इस एस्ट्रोनॉट की सैलरी में मेरा कुछ होगा.
अच्छा ब्रो तो ये लाइव स्ट्रीम कैसे करते हैं मुझे भी सिखा दे.
वाईफाई का पासवर्ड चेंज करना बंद कर दे.
तेरे पैसे नहीं वो टैक्स पेयर्स के पैसे हैं.
फिक्र है कि ये आसमां सच सुने, जमी को सौंपा जाए इंसाफ, हौसलों की ऊंची उड़ान हो और हो ईमानदारी की बात. फिक्र है कि हर शख्स की आवाज शामिल हो. जीत सिर्फ आंकड़ों की नहीं दिलों की हो. निभाने हर भरोसा, रखने उम्मीद रोशन, खबरों की बेमिसाल मशाल थामे आपके साथ था, है और रहेगा न्यूज नेशन.
Hello everyone, I'm your host Akansha Srivastava and I'm so excited to welcome you all to the second edition of annual BuzzInContent Conversations. This year, MTV presents BuzzInContent Conversations 2021, powered by News Nation, is spread across 3 days, where we will invite India's top content marketing professionals to have relevant and meaningful discussions around content marketing and branded content at 3 p.m. every day. The BuzzInContent Conversations will be followed by BuzzInContent Awards 2021 on December 17 at 5 p.m. The virtual awards gala, hosted by noted television actor Aparna Dikshit, will celebrate the exemplary content-led marketing campaigns. Tomorrow, we will have masters of the trade share words of wisdom on maximizing ROI through big-ticket content marketing IPs. And the day after, we'll have marketing professionals from startups world talk about how they go about creating cost-effective content marketing initiatives. So today we are going to discuss a very interesting topic, which will set the ground for next year's content marketing strategy deployed by the brands. We will be talking about content marketing trends that will help brands stand out in 2022. You know, in the last 4 to 5 years, we have come a long way in the field of content marketing by creating content-led marketing work of global standards. Earlier, it wasn't that case. We were still thinking that when we will reach that level. Almost every brand has begun its content marketing journey, but the ones with a proper content marketing strategy in place and in the right direction will be able to stand out from the clutter. To discuss the same, I'm glad to welcome Manasi Narasimhan, Vice President and Head, Marketing and Communications South Asia MasterCard, Shailja, Chief Content Officer, Omnicom Media Group, Yogesh Manwani, President Lintas CX, which is Mullen-Lowe Lintas Specialized Content Business Unit, Dipashree, Senior Marketing Manager from a global OTT platform. I welcome you all today. Thank you for taking out time for this, guys.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dipashree, I would like to begin this discussion with you that according to you, what are the various content themes, storylines, and narratives being appreciated by the consumers? And what are the predictions according to you for the next year to come?
Thanks, Akansha, for getting us all together. You have started off with a really difficult question to which there is no easy answer. I think I will take a very storyteller's approach to this question that you have asked. I think what will resonate with consumers is what puts them at the center of the story, quite simply. So I'll take you back to storytelling is as old as, frankly, as humanity itself, right? When it's very, humans at a very visceral, at a raw level, we started with community. We came together first for survival, then we came together for stories around a campfire. The way I think of myself as a storyteller, and of course, things have really changed from way back in 2011 when I was first hired for my content marketing job to now wherein it's so scientific. But at the very core of it is actually telling a very good story. Now it's become extremely complicated where you tell a good story, but across, I don't know, at any point of time, 16 different platforms, but it has to sound like one integrated story. So to answer your question, I think consumers or the audience, like we refer to it, will like or resonate stories that put them at the heart of it. Why do I say that? It's because in this increasingly hyper digitized world, no thanks in parts to what happened in the last 2 years, right? The numbers are wild. They say anywhere between 40 to 70 million new netizens have joined the interweb. There is just so much that is there in terms of content to consume. So something that puts the consumer's need at the heart of it and tells it as a story, or understands the consumer's sort of motivations and tells it as a story versus talks down to them, I think always works, right? The second thing that I've noticed while building a community for brands that I've worked with or for brands that I have helped build is that when telling stories, brands should always remember that one of the biggest purposes that we are serving is actually help people find communal threads. By that, I mean that the reason people want to find together the reason people want to come together is because they are looking for commonalities. They're not looking for differences. So they're looking for commonalities, meaning that they're looking for recommendations. They're looking for vindication. They're looking for shared interests. They're looking to discover something new, but they're looking to discover something new together. They're looking for something in common, and above everything, quite possibly, like I said, a sense of belonging. So I know I'm oversimplifying. So any piece of content, any thread of storytelling or thinking that can make you feel like you belong to something together is going to for sure resonate. And the last thing that I'll leave everyone with is this one thought that I have realized over the last 2 years, where we have been so deep into, telling stories for an iconic brand, is that while we are telling stories, the consumer is telling their own stories. So I think of the consumer, everyone says, you must do culture marketing. And I'm like, hang on a second. Culture is doing its own marketing. The culture that you are after, the moment marketing that you want to do, it's doing its own marketing. It is not something that is in your control. I call it a trinity. It's a trinity because it creates its own culture, it consumes its own culture, and it shapes its own culture. So how are you going to tame that beast? You're never going to tame that beast. So you have to understand, you have to be so immersed in that culture. And by that, I don't mean that you have to be a pop culture fiend. At some point, yes, you have to really understand pop culture. Otherwise, you will probably not know what's going on. But it's more than that. It's being able to viscerally understand what's resonating with your consumers, to be able to speak that language, and always be probably a little step ahead so that you give them something that they look at and say, they get me. They get me in a way that no one else gets me. So I think that those are the three sort of things. Going forward, I think we've already started seeing this. I think especially what's going to happen in 2022 is that you will see a lot of community-led creations coming in. No thanks in parts to the likes of TikTok, the likes of Reels, the likes of Takatak. They have put content production in the hands of our audiences. They have put storytelling in the hands of our audiences. TikTok no longer exists in India, but I've worked with that team. The level of technology and creativity that is there is insane. So if you can give me that level of VFX, that level of sound technology, and that level of storytelling, I can be a creator. So it is, I think, pertinent for us marketers and content creators to remember that we have millions of content creators at our disposal. So the biggest trend is for us to remember that we have amazing content creators at our disposal. We have to find them and we have to make them our advocates with. So community-led content creation, I'd say, is one of the biggest trends, if you will, the biggest macro trends is what I have noticed. And it'll only become stronger because guess what? We're all homebound, and that's one of the most creative things we can do.
You have articulated the answer so well that it can itself go like an authored piece on content marketing trends for 2022. Yeah. In fact, when you were mentioning that culture bit in your answer, I thought to bring it to our audience notice that we have a section specifically on content and culture, where there's a semiotician, Hamsini Shivkumar. She analyzes campaigns and trends by brands and from the lens of culture, and she writes an article for us every week on Mondays. So it's interesting bit that we're doing, I don't think so anybody else is doing in India when it comes to platforms. Coming to my next question, which is for Mansi. Financial and fintech categories have a large focus on content marketing compared to any other business category. Assuming it will remain the growth driver for content marketing next year as well, what innovations will it bring to the table in terms of content formats?
So Akansha, thanks for having me on the panel. And what you said is absolutely right, because from a consumer perspective, finance and fintech is it is high involvement in a way, it is ubiquitous, and the pandemic has led to a fundamental shift in consumer behavior. Let's face it, it's been a humanitarian tragedy. People have, even those of us who've been fortunate to have not lost our jobs or have had to take a pay cut, I think are far more sensitive to the importance of money and payments in our lives, right? We've seen a lot of people, especially elderly people, even personally, anecdotally, people who've been almost forced to use digital payments for the first time because the option of paying in cash did not exist, however much you may want to do it. And some of these are here to stay, both the adoption of e-commerce and digital payments, therefore the adoption of no contact payments, so indeed a no contact way of living, almost, So these are step changes. They are here to stay post the pandemic. So one of the big things that we as MasterCard have done, and many players in the banking and the fintech space have done, is to handhold consumers through the new normal. Because guess what? The new normal is here to stay. So how do you use digital payments effectively and safely? Because for all that tech companies like MasterCard invest in cybersecurity, all of that comes to naught if somebody falls for the phishing scam of somebody calling saying, hey, I'm calling from the RBI, can you give your OTP? So that education is something that's extremely crucial. And one of the best ways of doing it is not to have the brand talk to consumers directly, because however well and empathetically you try and do it, it is still a brand talking to a consumer. But as Dipashree rightly said, we have so many content creators who are credible sources of authority themselves. So who would a consumer rather listen to? Somebody whom they trust anyway, telling them that here's how you use your card, here's how you store your card online, or a brand sort of coming down saying, here are 10 things you do. So is content marketing here to stay? I think 200%. The focus has to be on empathy, on getting the right audience, getting the right messenger. I think vernacular is going to be huge, because many of these first-time users are not in the metros, they are in tier 2, 3, 4 India. We also do a lot of content marketing with merchants, because that's the other side of the story, right? It's your neighborhood kirana shop owner, it's your bhajiwala, who today has started adopting digital payments, maybe on the phone, maybe through contactless. So I think there is a huge play in that space to deliver what is a very serious message in a very credible and a very relatable method, because the consumer has faced so much uncertainty, right? Our lives have been upended, all of us. So I think it's about just reassurance, about telling them that you're not alone, we're walking this journey with you. And that's the essential role of content marketing in the finance and payment space particularly.
Okay, sure. That's a wonderful answer. So would you also be exploring these new age short video apps and all?
Oh, of course, we always do that. So I think there are two parts, and I think this is true of any market here. One is the medium, and so as Dipashree said, we were exploring TikTok. TikTok's now not available in India. We explore newer formats in the mediums that we engage with. We also explore newer content partnerships. Now, whether those are with media houses or individual creators or user-generated content. So that endeavor is obviously always on. The focus is going to be tier 2 and 3 India. The focus is going to be vernacular content. The focus is going to be short form, snackable content. I mean, nobody has the time to listen to somebody preach for 10 minutes. So it's like literally 30 seconds in and out. Give it to me when I want to consume it, not when you as the brand want me to consume it. So I think these things are very much here to stay.
Mm-hmm. Also, you said that brands should not speak or talk to the consumers directly, but through creators and all. So which also brings that influencers will be an important part of the content marketing strategy. And you also spoke about that you also have a pillar of content marketing, which is totally interacting with the merchants. So by speaking to merchants, that brings to the B2B marketing space, content marketing space. So can influencer marketing be also deployed in B2B marketing space, content marketing space?
Absolutely, because at the end of the day, merchants are also humans. They have the same interests, the same passions. They look up to the same people. So I'll give you a simple example. We have MasterCard's brand ambassador is MS Dhoni. Now, whether you're a merchant or whether you're, an affluent consumer in South Bombay, the appeal of Dhoni pretty much cuts across all demographic groups. So we have done some very interesting content with him for merchants, which we call Team Cashless India, obviously because he's been a very successful cricket captain. And through that, you encourage merchants to ask their questions about digitization, about payments, and you answer those. So I think the fundamental principle is we are all human beings at heart. We have the same aspirations, desires, fears, hopes. We are all storytellers at heart. I think Dipashree made a very valuable point. It's in our DNA as a race, and that's what you tap. And then, of course, the channels vary, the method of dissemination varies, the medium varies, but I think the core philosophy is the same.
Okay. So I think you've already summarized the trends also in the BFSI sector for content marketing with your answer, this particular answer of yours. Shailja, my next question is to you that, while social commerce is the newbie in town, how can social commerce platforms and brands ensure that it doesn't turn out to be another Home Shop 18 and Naptol ads on TV where the anchor come sell or shout at the top of their voice to sell the products?
First of all, thank you, Akansha. I am feeling very honored to be part of this jury and amongst all the jury members here right now. It's just like a swipe up, swipe right, click their way through if they don't find it interesting. So push marketing definitely is not going to work. And social commerce for the longest time has been the two-way communication, right, with potential customers with feedback mechanism. And social commerce combined with social media, right? That is the real magic where all the changes, dynamism is happening. Because if you look at the predominant format of social commerce, which emerged, whether it is Meesho, Bulbul, Sim. But beyond all of these, there are also Instagram and Facebook. And Instagram, if you look at that medium, it is also a type of social commerce. And if the mindset of the person who's going to Instagram is actually to look at the visual delight the person is going through, right? So it's very interactive. It's in the mindset that I am here to engage, here to just have a good time. And in contextually, if something is coming, natively, if something is coming up, it's not like really push marketing. And I have shopped on Instagram just because the content was so enticing. Just because of that, not because I love the brand or anything else. And also the creator, the influencer who had created that particular video, that was very interesting. So coming to Facebook, it's the same thing. I also like the way Flipkart and Myntra build their content hubs, right? They created a lot of content within their app. That was a very enticing way of engaging the consumers while they're during the shopping experience. But I think it's still not the purpose why people are going to these apps, right? So if I go to Amazon or Flipkart or Myntra, I want to go and shop and come out of that. I don't want to stay there for too long for engagement or entertainment. But what the short video apps are doing these days is very, very interesting. So, for example, Moj has partnered with Flipkart. So, while the creators would create content, they would be taken to the Flipkart site, and then you can, shop from there. So I think the environment is very important. In what environment, what mood and what state of mind you're catching the consumer. And whether it's Chingari, Trell, I think all of them are exploring this. So social video commerce, which will help navigate and makes it personalized and easy to use, right? As a discovery is here to stay. If you look at even China, right, all that's happening in China with GMV, which is going to be up from 20 to 30%, is because that entertainment element is very much entrenched in social video commerce. So I cannot alienate e-commerce and social commerce and social video commerce. They're all blended now. And it'll be very interesting to see how this engagement goes from here onwards, because like everybody's saying, influencer marketing is here to stay. And that will bring a new narrative to what's happening in social commerce. So definitely it is very engaging. It's not push marketing. And I'm really looking forward to next year, how this evolves.
Earlier this year, we were thinking what next for influencer marketing. And now we see social commerce booming like anything.
Yes.
Yeah. Yogesh, I wanted to ask you that unlike advertising, content marketing is all about customer experience. So how much weightage should customer experience carry in any content strategy?
Hi, Akansha. First of all, thank you for having me here on this panel. It's lovely to be here amongst my co-panelists, and congratulations on the second year of BuzzInContent Conversations.
Thank you.
Yes, customer experience, is important in today's times. I think it's always been important, especially if you've been a service brand, right? When you're talking to the consumer directly. And thanks to technology and digital today, more and more brands are possibly having more avenues and engaging with consumers directly. So the importance of customer experience has gone up manifold. And content marketing definitely does help, play a role in meeting that goal. But I think there is a much higher order purpose that actually content marketing helps serve brands and businesses, which is, that of customer loyalty, right? And that's something that, brands vie for. And depending on, the life stage or the category, I think content marketing can play, different tools come into play. And brands can either go out there and educate their customers or their consumers, like Mansi was mentioning, what they did with MSD for their, trade, or in the fintech space, there's the need to educate. So there is a lot of content marketing that revolves around that objective. Or even brands can look at, doing it in a far entertaining and engaging manner to build a community, like Dipashree was mentioning. And I think that's eventually what brands kind of vie for, and content marketing and specifically video-led storytelling plays a very significant role in helping achieve that goal, where you create an emotional connect with your audience. And in a sense, you create a sense of community, who then become your advocates. And I think that's the ultimate high order purpose for any brand or business, right? Where then the brand is marketing itself. In fact, the consumers are marketing the brand themselves. And again, I think this is, I think the point's been made by multiple people. I think this is true to humanity, to us, from the times when we were living in caves to now, right? Even in the world of business, it's not new, right? In the 1930s, brands started radio soap operas. And in fact, that genre has been defined thanks to brands, right? Otherwise, the term soap opera wouldn't have been, come into play if there were no soap brands who were funding this content. I think over the period of time, the models have changed, and we've come to a stage now, I think, where brands have the opportunity, and some brands are already doing that, who are engaging in storytelling, meaningful storytelling, which helps them achieve this, higher objective of customer loyalty. And I think that's something that's key, that content marketing in today's time can play a role, help brands achieve.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Mansi, nowadays, like we have been speaking about content marketing. Content experience is the new word now. Everybody started speaking about content experience. So how can brands ensure that consumers' content experience is appealing, and what role can content tech play to make this content experience journey smooth?
So, Akansha, that's, I think, a very evolving question at this point. And I think personally, as a marketer, you face two sort of contradictory pulls. Now, you obviously want the experience, any experience, to be as seamless as possible. But where content is concerned, you need authenticity above all else. I mean, the reason content exists, and I think Yogesh made a very valuable point, it's about consumer engagement, loyalty, reassurance. Okay, it's not about, I'm not sure if you would launch a new product purely with content. I mean, I'm sure brands can and have done it, but I see the fundamental purpose of content is to reassure, to handhold, to empathize, and of course, subtly to educate, right? So the authenticity becomes absolutely paramount. And the minute you start saying brand first, my messaging has to come out. And I've had these conversations with people, including with banks that we work with, saying, why is the celebrity not holding the card? Why is he not pointing to it and saying so-and-so bank MasterCard? And I'm like, it's not an ad. Yes, if you make an ad, I would say so-and-so card. say it 10 times, So there is that contradictory pull and push. Can technology help, to your question? Yes, of course it can. I think what technology can help is to create content experiences at scale with some limited degree of variability. But the real challenge in content, and I'd love to hear my fellow panelists' view on this, how do you maintain that human element even while you're creating content at scale? And that to me is the real challenge.
Can anybody answer that question?
Yeah, I would love to add to what Mansi said, because this is literally like the struggle, right? I remember when back in 2011, this was at Singtel. And I remember being literally asked, like, so you're doing all this, but where's the business? And I'm like, well, it is not, I'm not bringing, like, you have to give me time, right? This is a longer journey. I want to take a spin on this entire content experience question that you have asked, Akansha, because I think about it a lot. And in my head, you asked it with technology. So I'll try and give a slightly different answer. When I think of content experience, I think of a particular set of audience and how they will experience all of the content marketing efforts or content pieces therein that they will find in their consumer journey as they go along, right? So let me just break this down a little bit. So when in the past or even now, when we do our work, content is a huge part of our marketing strategy, right? But there is also a whole lot of other stuff that goes on. There is performance marketing. There is the entire aspect of digital marketing, offline marketing. Content is that golden piece that has to permeate across all, right? And technology, like Mansi said, is what brings out the bad boys to play. So if I didn't have technology, I would make a piece of content and it would rest on one platform and appeal only to one set of audience. So let me try and explain this. If I have a particular idea today, thanks to technology, I can think of so many different versions in which it can live across multiple platforms in different avatars, touching different consumer touch points, right? Intercepting different consumers at different points of the consumer journey that was unthinkable even 4 or 5 years back. So imagine the core idea is that of, let's say the core idea is that of a film, right? But that film can then spawn so many other different formats, if you will. On one platform, it can be an interactive game. On the other, it can be a rich media play on, let's say, a Times of India billboard, right? The same idea can go to a living sort of an offline out-of-home space and be something else, right? On Instagram, it can come and be an influencer marketing strategy. Now that same content idea that you had has spawned itself and become like a multiple-headed being that lives thanks to technology across multiple platforms. I don't think I imagined doing that back like 5 years back or 6 years back, where we were slightly limited. So if I got it across LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter, I was like, man, I'm the cat's whiskers. Now I'm like, wait, hang on, that's like base level. Where else am I getting it? Whose radar am I getting it on? And then my blueprint is always that of the consumer. If my consumer journey has been mapped out, and it's never a linear journey anymore, right? The famous Google Zero, sort of the entire thing of the fact that the consumer journey is out of whack. We all know that. Imagine having to map a content journey on top of it. Imagine having to map the marketing journey on top of it. I think technology enables that. If you are able to create an almost seamless content experience, a storytelling experience, and frankly, that success happens maybe 5 out of 10 times, and that's a really great success ratio. And then your consumers come and tell you that, yeah, that campaign made a lot of sense, like you did this, and you're like, you got that? That's amazing, because, like you got 5 out of the 10 things I was trying to do. But that's the beauty of technology. You take an idea and you multiply it. It has contagion across multiple touch points. You are able to touch multiple consumers across multiple points in their journey. And that's what I think of as a content experience. I know it's a very bastardized word, but it's truly 360. It's truly integrated. And I know I tell my teams all the time, I said to them the other day, I said, you see it on a deck and you think that's how the consumer is going to see it. They don't care. They are going to see it as bits and pieces. But it should make sense to them if they see it on an out of home, as if they see it on a performance marketing ad targeted at them, as if they hear it from an influencer. It should all be cohesive. It should not be schizophrenic. To you, you see it on a deck. They don't see it on a deck. So don't be a marketeer when you're rolling it out. Be a marketeer when you think about it. But when you're rolling it out, be a consumer and say, is A plus B plus C adding it up to be a whole, not a sum of parts? So, and that to me is an integrated content experience. But safe to say, it doesn't happen always, in all honesty.
Can I just add to what Dipashree just said? I think very, very nicely put, right, from a storytelling and content perspective. But if you look at how content marketing has evolved, there are 5 key pillars which have come up. There is the consumer, there is the content solution which is being created, the technology, the community, and the commerce. And all of them have to talk to each other. And that glue which is keeping all of them together is technology. Yeah. Right. Earlier, it was that split experience because technology was not bringing all of them together. So connected solutions, talking to the consumer, are building those communities, which is going to affect the commerce of future for businesses. So, and I've seen it repeatedly, whether it's the short video business, television, branded content, any businesses, all these 5 have to come together in future.
Yeah, although there are so many places where marketers brands can connect with the consumers, but I think this has also made the marketing job very tough. Very tough. I mean, this kya chodo, kya nahi chodo, it has become like that. You have to be everywhere. So tough. So, yeah.
The job is to say, the toughest job now is to say no. When the plan comes to you and you're like, no, also no. And they're all looking at you saying, what are you going to say yes to? I said, now we will come to that. Let's get rid of the riffraff first. So only one that creates impact.
No, and also if I could act as a marketer, and it'll be interesting to get Yogesh and Shailja's perspective on this. I've often pushed the agencies we work with back saying, come to me with a holistic view. Don't come and say, here's an influencer plan and here's a performance plan and here's a branded content plan, because that's the way you are structured as an agency. Fair enough. I get that. But somebody's got to hold the can together and say, here are the things. And, in this particular context, maybe we do only influencers. And in some other context, maybe we do only something else. So I think that's actually something that I would really look forward to, having been on the client side. But I obviously appreciate that there are challenges in the ecosystem, but that I feel would significantly help as we move into 2022.
Can I take this, Mansi?
Yes, absolutely. Want your views. And sorry to be provocative on this one. But
not at all. I mean, I have it coming my way almost every day from marketers. So see, essentially, I agree with you. Having this split experience, which Dipashree was also talking, is gone are the days. We just can't come up with just a linear solution and say, okay, this is one format, this is a solution. What I think at an agency level, at a practice level, what we are trying to do is take out the brand communication, the brand attributes, and then work on the fundamentals to build the content strategy. And that working in itself is like a Sherlock Holmes decoding. It's the cake piece has gone missing. That's a share of your business. And who's taken it away? I think that's the 2 or 3 days work which goes in. You have to do your content audits, your market analysis, your social listening, whatnot. But more from a content perspective, there's a lot of things which the competition is doing, a lot of things which you would have done in the past. So analysis, all of that. And working with the creative agency hand in hand is very critical at this stage. So that's why I'm saying the brand comms and the brand attributes, which have to be the core to our solutions coming to you. If they are not in place, that's the reason it's just piecemeal. And it will always be piecemeal if it's all not stitched together. So integrated marketing planning is the game going ahead. It's tough. It's maddening.
So let me come in on that one. I think Shailja kind of summed it up very well and set it up very well for me. In fact, completely agree with you, Mansi, and what Shailja is saying, and what you have said. I think we resonate with that challenge, and in fact, that's one of the key reasons to be for this new division that we've set up at Lintas, of Lintas CX Entertainment, purely because like Shailja said, the fact is that. You need the central idea of the brand values and the brand equity to kind of flow into everything that you do, right? And I think one of the challenges that most clients like you face today is that while you're working with specialists who are scattered across, and the nucleus of the brand therefore is completely destroyed in that sense. And I think that's the reason to be for us. Having said that, I think there are two things. One is, when you do tactical stuff and short-term stuff, over there, I think, the challenge is not as as magnanimous. But when you're doing long-term stuff and you're trying to build the brand in a long term, I think that's where it's even more critical and essential to ensure that the brand comes together. And I think that's where for us, when we are at Lintas CX, and this was actually a grouse that came to us from many clients. And that's the reason we kind of set it up, saying, okay, because you're dealing with others and they're not getting the brand. And therefore, we will bring these skills and these solutions to the table. And we have, the understanding of the consumer and the brand. And we'll be able to help you with that solution, therefore, so that, it eventually all adds up, right? And leads to that, like Dipashree said, a whole and not sum of the parts.
Okay. Hope your question is answered, Mansi.
No, absolutely. And I would also say that I think the other side, which must be frustrating, and certainly the agencies we work with tell me this time and again, which is speed to market, because content is sometimes literally about seizing the moment. It's seizing the zeitgeist. And if you say, I need 26.5 people to approve it and another 14.5 people to debate it, you miss the moment most of the time. So I think the challenge is, how do you balance that out? And sort of when it's one of those things, right? When something is right, especially if huge budgets are not riding on it, just go for it. Okay, what's the downside? Yeah, somebody will criticize it. Sure, somebody will criticize everything you do, right? So I think it's also, obviously, while we do ask a lot of our agencies and the ecosystem, I think that's also something that we need to give back, So to me, that's the other side of the equation.
Just to add there, Mansi, I think speed to market in both ways, I think, is a challenge. One, where sometimes speed is of essence and you need to, get out of the door really fast. But at the same time, when you're doing slightly more long form, serialized, meaningful content, then you really can't get out of the door that fast. Then
Absolutely.
You need to, like I keep saying, you can't cook biryani, like pulao. You really need to kind of give it that time, right? And that love and that attention, right? And then only will you be able to serve a good day.
Absolutely agreed. But just that in my experience, some of these quick wins, it's something could be as simple as India wins a cricket match or something. Yeah. What you do around it, you have to do it at that point, not 6 weeks later. I think that's the point where content is concerned.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Shailja, I wanted to ask you, in last 2 years, last 2 years, I've come across several reports about gaming growing, esports growing, and how brands can adapt to it, use it. So although I am not that interested in gaming and esports, so I really don't have any idea that how can brands go about it. So I wanted to ask you that, and also I haven't come across many brands utilizing gaming and esports for branded integrations and all. Therefore, this question is that what is it that brands are shying away from content integrations into gaming despite its growing popularity?
So I think on the contrary, there's lots happening. There's a lot of action happening in gaming and esports, Akansha. So online gaming, esports, edtech, influencer marketing are the 4 which got the maximum boost during pandemic. It's almost triggered 400% surge in online gaming. And at the moment, this industry is around $3 billion, which is supposedly going to go up till $11 billion by 2025. So, and as a size in itself, we are the second biggest gaming nation after China, right? So, and if you're talking about what led to this growth and why it's not visible or the share of voice has not reached you, I think during pandemic, there is a lot of effort which has gone into R&D, product, marketing, right? There are a lot of brands and industries which are gunning after the esports and gaming, who put a lot of effort in terms of stabilizing the fundamentals and the foundation of it. I mean, we've seen island-based esports company launching in India. We've seen a lot of talent management companies mushrooming in India who are taking care of gamers. In fact, one of our brands, smartphone brands, we engage a lot with gamers. We have launched products just purely taking gamers on YouTube, integrating the brand within that. Yes. And see, if you look at Dream 11, right? Dream 11 has also onboarded Dhoni and Rohit Sharma and all. So there is obviously efforts are going on, and I won't say that brands have not invested. Globally, a lot of brands, whether it's Puma, whether it's Nike, they have been looking at gaming very seriously. It's also because gaming, esports per se would entice the Gen Zs and the millennials, right? 18 to 30-year-olds. In India, if you see, on an average, right, average person is spending, the gamers are spending around 40 minutes a day and 22 hours per week on just streaming videos. Massive numbers. These are not to be ignored. I mean, I think 10 years ago when I saw Twitch for the first time, right? So one of my teammates, young guy in my team, he was watching Twitch in office. I was like, what's going on? What are you doing? It was so absurd for those days. But now you see people are just watching. They're watching streaming games. I mean, and that's a huge potential for marketers to get into. So talking about brands, see, for brands, they have an eye on gaming for the longest time. It used to be more in terms of on-ground gaming tournaments, which were held in US or outside India. Then it came to India. Then Twitch came to India. Then something started happening on YouTube. But if you look at specifically brands which have invested in gaming in India, would be Oppo, right? I think Oppo has been looking at gaming in a very, very focused way. In fact, one of our brands, Mercedes-Benz, has invested in gaming, BMW. So whether it's a luxury brand or it's a brand which is looking to just technology, right? They all have been looking at gaming very closely. And a lot of opportunities, if you just look at how do brands utilize games or gaming or esports. From assets, you have inventory, on banners, you have interstitials, you have videos, you can take franchise of games, you can take teams, sponsorships. A lot of things are possible. I mean, when we are brainstorming for our set of clients, we are looking at ways how to integrate our car and launch the car within the game, right? So I think this space is bursting with a lot of energy. There's lots going on. And I hope much more is talked about in forums like these. So there's more attention on this.
So can online gaming and esports be used by brands across categories, or there are certain categories for whom this won't be relevant?
Very interesting question. Like I said, see, if Louis Vuitton has looked at it. They have integrated the skin, within one of the games. That's the answer to the question. If Mercedes
placement in that way,
yes, if Mercedes-Benz and BMW is doing it, then you have the answer. I mean, when we just think of a BMW, Mercedes, we won't think of that as a first solution. But yes, I think when we think about gaming and esports, look at what the consumer is doing. And the thing we were talking about, technology, the consumer is on multiple gadgets. The consumer has done a lot of things during pandemic, and the habits have changed. Trends have come up. New trends are being created. And we'll get all the answers. I think this year has been fabulous in terms of busting the old trends and reinventing new ones or creating fresh new ones. So yeah, gaming is here to stay. It's a very strong vertical. In fact, we'll be launching a sports vertical soon. And along with sports marketing, esports and gaming will be a very, very strong vertical for us going ahead at OMG Group.
In fact, gaming platforms and all these companies keep on coming up with reports saying that gaming is not only for the young people or for the men.
Yes.
There are people also joining, started doing gaming and watching esports streaming and all. So that's an interesting trend that we're coming up with. And I hope brands utilize it well, because it totally depends how well you utilize the space. It shouldn't be only limited to brand placements.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Dipashree, I wanted to ask you, is there a strategy or a framework to think of fresh ideas or out of the box ideas when it comes to content marketing?
That's such an interesting question. Okay, so I think yes and no, and that's a very trick answer to a trick question. Okay, I'll tell you, I read this somewhere, so I'm going to try and paraphrase what I read. I think the problem that most big companies face, right? The ones that probably small companies don't face. And Mansi said this, like if something momentary has come and you want to react to it, or you want to indulge in moment marketing, you can't have 26 people hamming over it for 55 days. And that's just not, I am no longer used to it. I joke with my team that I literally take calls in the shower. Like someone sends me something and I'm like, before I'm jumping and I'm like, yeah, go for it. They literally send me something. Are you approving it? I'm like, change this and go for it. And sometimes I just think about it, jokes apart, I'm like, I just said go for it. But the impact of that go for it will be seen like in the next hour. If it blows up, it's all coming back to me. But I'm like, in my head, I have this scale, like the risk and the dividend scale. And I'm like, risk, dividend. Okay, dividend is very high, risk is 20%. If that's the scale, I'm going to go for it. It's when the risk is 80% and the dividend is 20%, I'm like, give me an hour to think about it. Then I will tell you whether we are going for it or not. So that's just my personal way of thinking about it. But I was just coming back to your question. I think the problem with the bigger companies in that framework that you said is actually not creative. It's structural. So the big companies, they organize their marketing efforts, if you think about it, as an antithesis of art worlds. Okay. If you think about how art worlds function, we become fairly bureaucratic in our brand structures, right? And the brand and the marketing team is supposed to be the most creative, right? We're supposed to draw inspiration, absorb ourselves in pop culture, really just listen and absorb and take that and funnel that into our daily activities. We're not able to do that because we may or may not be, and I'm not necessarily speaking about the company that I work for. That is probably the most flexibly structured, if you will, but companies that I've worked for before, right? Or just companies in general. We excel at coordinating across the world and executing very complex marketing programs, maybe across multiple markets simultaneously around the world. But this organizational model can sometimes lead to mediocrity in thinking when it comes to innovation, which is, I think, your question, saying, is there a framework when you come to think differently? I think the framework is to shatter the framework, right? I remember when I was in Unilever, which was my first job. I think that's a company Mansi and I share in common, Mansi, if you remember. I remember, I can't quite remember the gentleman's name, and he came from MTV to give us a session, or take a session rather, on how they do things at MTV. And as a young marketing executive at that point of time, my brains were blown away by completely how differently they do things at MTV. And I kept thinking, how is that possible in a fairly structured company like Unilever? And I realized that that's probably not possible because we do things in a very, very different way. And it's just a very different way of functioning. MTV had a very different way of functioning. That MTV was at its absolute creative peak at that point of time. Through the course of the years, I have realized a couple of things, and I just want to share that with you. When people say think out of the box, that's actually very limiting, if you ask me. That means there is a box. What if you pretended that there is no box, right? What if you say, I wiped the slate clean? That's what I say to all my teams. To the agency teams that I work with at any point of time, believe it or not, there are 6 or 7 agency teams that I work with on any campaign, okay? I go to them and I say, again, to Mansi's question, give me a holistic campaign. But if they have a predestined idea of what a holistic campaign looks like, you're going to get the same stuff over and over again. What if I tell them, this is the story I want to tell. Tell me where it will live and breathe, right? You erase the idea of what you think it works like and where it works like and how it works like. Let's start afresh. I'll be very honest. I don't want to paint an idealistic picture. It's not possible always, but on some cases, it is definitely possible, right? Then comes to the creative ideas part. Think out of the box. I never, at least the teams that I work with, we never even use those words. We take inspiration, let's say from a Droga 5 or somewhere, and we look at each other and we say, do you think we could do something like that? And then we riff off of each other and we say, you're crazy, right? You realize we only have 6 weeks to pull this off. And then we say, but we did something like this back in 2019. Yeah, but then there was no pandemic. But there is a way to do this. Now you see how we are building off each other's ideas. There is zero limitation right now in our heads. The limitation will come to us later when we realize we have no budgets, right? Then we try to figure where are those budgets going to come from. So that's the second trick, to not have any limitations when you are ideating. The third, ideas can come from anywhere and everywhere. Ideas can come from a financial brand. Ideas can come from a Cannes award-winning brand. Ideas can come from your sister, and ideas can come from all your agencies. So my media agency the other day gave me a fantastic creative idea. I took that to my creative agency and they're like, but that is from your media agency. And I said, so therefore, has it come stamped? Like, is there a tattoo on it? And do you have a problem? They're like, no. I said, so therefore, let us all get into a room and see how we can make this thing into a living, breathing thing that the consumer looks at and says, oh my God, they did it again, right? So therefore I said, there is no one framework, but in my head, that's what I do. And the last really is the first thing that I said. How risky is it? How much are you willing to risk the brand? So I have an internal parameter of the 80-20. I will only risk the brand 20% because it's an iconic brand. And if the dividend is 80 and the risk is 20, I'll go for it. I won't even ask. I take those calls on an hourly basis, not even a daily basis, right? And then I have trusted partners, let's say the lead in the social team. It's a WhatsApp message away. I said, listen, the risk is this much. Should we go for it? Has it blown up in my face? Yeah, 3 times a month. But do we know how to manage that situation? Yes, probably 2 out of those 3 times. So yeah, those are the non-framework frameworks that I can provide.
This also forms another authored article by you, Dipashree.
You are very flattering, Akansha, but thank you.
No, I genuinely mean it. So, Yogesh, how should brands, agencies, and platforms go about upskilling their marketing and content marketing teams to make the most out of the evolving space of content marketing in India?
So, I mean, the short answer is obviously you need to kind of adapt and overhaul the recruitment and the talent strategies. I think media brands, platform brands, agencies are already leading from the front in this, right? In the sense of the kind of talent that is being recruited. Obviously, that is a result of also the supply or the reforms that are happening in terms of education. And I think that itself is also because eventually you need to start from the grassroots, right? And I think that's already begun in the kind of, courses that are being offered and the avenues for, young students to be able to start learning from the basics. Dipashree was mentioning about her team, and I think Netflix is a great example about, how that upskilling or reformation is happening already. When it comes to brand owners and agencies, I think, again, lots of upskilling avenues, in terms of workshops, in terms of online courses that can happen to the already existing workforce. I think over there what's also essential is what, to the point that Manasi had mentioned, eventually, I think what brand owners also need to do is to kind of work with a selective 1 or 2, expert partners. I think that's today a big challenge. I think, over the years, the space has got very fragmented, and today a brand owner possibly has to speak to 5 different people when it comes to social, digital, mainline, media, creator, influencer, and then it's the task of the team at the client's end of the brand manager to ensure that, like a symphony, that it's all playing, to the perfect tune. My thinking is the fact is that, if you run a restaurant and you want to have wines, you need to understand and appreciate wines, and therefore clients need to understand and appreciate the creative process and creative output. But you don't need to be a wine sommelier. You don't need to go out and definitely set up a vineyard, right? That's not the business you are in, right? Leave that, to one or two people that you work with and work with them. And I think last and most important, which has always been the case, I think in that process, a lot of it, especially in content and storytelling, is about the chemistry, the relationship, the trust that comes along, right? Because a lot of it is also subjective, iterative, and you learn by experience, right? And that's something that I think is very important to invest in, because you can't just do that over a period of 3 to 6 months. And then if you can't start changing, your partners, then in the long run, in fact, I think you're doing more harm than good. And you have to invest that time and energy. So find the right partners, invest the time and energy, have the people who can, understand and appreciate the basics of the, the content and storytelling and creative process, right? And at the other end, like I said, the agency and the platforms are already doing it of having the right talent. So I think that will ensure that, you have a well-oiled machine and churning out great content marketing solutions that are ultimately serving the brand and the business.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Mansi, my next question is to you. While we have been discussing about the content marketing trends for next year, what are your observations about the evergreen content marketing trends that will never go out of fashion?
So I think, Akansha, the trends are more sort of rooted in basic human behavior, which is, as I said earlier, and I think my fellow panelists have also said, finding credible, advocates for your brand. Now, you can call them influencers, you can call them experts, you can call them, media partners, you can call them whatever. But I think the key principle of content marketing is credibility, authenticity. It's the way you tell stories. It's the way you integrate yourself with a consumer's life, as opposed to interrupting their life to tell them what you want to tell them. It's about being open to their feedback, because content is and should be a two-way street, right? You cannot have, and again, this has been one of my crusades as a marketer to say, just because somebody says something adverse about somebody says something adverse about you is not bad. In fact, it means they are engaging with you. What's worst for me, especially when you market content, is if people don't react at all, because that kind of means that it's either gone over their heads or they don't care, neither of which is a good situation to be in. So you want to engage. And that's where I think technology plays a great role, because what do social media platforms or platforms like, which allow video creation? Earlier, you had an opinion, you would air it to your friends, your families, your neighbors, anybody who cared to listen. Now, technology has allowed you to air your opinion to the world. Right? And just like your family, your friends, your neighbors would opine, you now have somebody who's maybe sitting in San Francisco now opining on you. But as a brand, you need to encourage that, obviously within limits. You don't want it to become a rant fest. But I think that to me is a crucial part of getting content marketing absolutely right. Then I think there are a whole bunch of trends which have come in because of the pandemic, the whole in-home consumption, be it OTT platforms, be it gaming. I completely second what Shailja has said. I think the immense focus on wellness, mental, physical, almost spiritual wellness, I think is here to stay. And as marketers, we have to be absolutely on top of those trends and sort of see how they dovetail into content marketing. So that would be my take on it.
I think Shailja also runs this mental and spiritual wellness platform on YouTube and all. I've seen it a few times.
Oh, wow.
Thanks, Akansha.
Yeah. So Shailja, I wanted to ask you that what will be the future of content marketing look like if third-party cookies disappear? Does it also mean that more and more brands will become publishers themselves and build their own channels?
Okay, a very favorite topic. I think those were early days when I was in Singapore and I was working with this Australia-based company called Brand New Media. And we were actually creating branded owned channels, owned by brands, but I'll come to that later. See, it's very evident and clear that web ecosystem needs to evolve because users are demanding greater privacy. Right. I mean, that goes without saying. Brands will suffer, obviously, because the same data which used to give them the benefit of getting personalized approach to reaching the consumer, or their campaigns are working or not, right? In terms of measurement, that will all go missing. Analytics will go missing. The data inputs coming at the time of planning will all go missing. So what do you do? How do you approach, change like this? This change is not going to come immediately. It's obviously evolving for all of us. However, let's say if first-party cookies is the only option, if you're asking me whether brand will become publishers and start owning their own assets, their channels, yes and no. And I'll tell you why, because to facilitate something like this, as massive as this, it takes a lot of infrastructure. It takes consistent effort, investment from the client side, the marketer side, and also building an in-house team. And when I was quoting my stint with Brand New Media, well, I did work with such marketers way back in 2015-16 who did bite the bullet. One of them was Fair Price in Singapore, and we created Food for Life OTT channel for them. And you know what? The first 2 years, we were just creating content. We were creating content. It was basically servers of Brand New Media. On that, we created all the channel. It was like just starting a channel, independent channel, like, old days, how TV channels will start. So there'll be a programming calendar, there'll be a marketing plan, there'll be a sales team, audience measurement, digital team. So all that setup was done by Brand New Media for Fair Price. We had in-house audience measurement, which we used to tap into, from a data insights perspective. But the brand kept investing in this for 2 years. Massive investment, 500, 600 pieces of content every year. And by the end of third year, we had 3,000 pieces of content, which would vary from food bloggers to chefs, articles, listicles, quizzes, interactive content, which was going on that platform. But what happened is by the end of the third year, they decided to plug that with the e-commerce platform. Right. So if somebody is coming and watching a recipe video and they like what they see, ingredients they want to buy immediately, right? So there's a CTA at the end of the video, which takes them to the Fair Price e-com site. And that's how magic started. So yes, there is a lot of sense in doing something like this. Not that marketers are not doing it. The ones who have apps, that's a good pilot test one could start with. Not use it only to maintain a customer base. I think if we can layer it with content marketing, test it out in terms of, doing a few campaigns and figure out if there's an appetite, or do some content structures, take it out to the market, do dipsticks with their consumers, see what's working, what's not working. There is a huge potential. I can give another example. For Indonesia, we created a platform for mothers. It was called Kasyanga Bunda. And basically mothers from 0 to 9 months, capturing their journey and how the brand becomes an enabler throughout those 9 months. And, it was beautiful because the brand said, okay, I'm going to do this. Let's just do this. This has the potential and we'll do it as a pilot. So they said 6 months, let's just do it as a pilot. If something comes out of it, then we go long way into it. So, I'm just waiting how this piece is going to evolve in India, and we are we were ahead of its times when it started in Singapore. But future is about building your own tribe. I think most of my jury members have been talking about communities, and communities are the future currencies as well, right? And when I spoke about the 5 pillars which are critical to marketing, whether it's the consumer, content, technology, commerce, and community, that's here to stay. All 5 have to be blended in your plans. That's from my side.
Yeah. So it's basically no and yes, both. I mean, you can't do away with, one can't just stay without putting content on other platforms, and one will, and the brand should also build their own platforms as well. Start acting like publishers. Both ways people will have to go about it.
It's interesting to have your own assets because as brands, we keep investing. Like I'm a brand, I'll keep investing in third-party platforms, right? And my audiences are there; they're not with me. But if I have my own assets and own platforms, I can engage with my audiences and build communities around that through continuous engagement. So that's a plus side of it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Dipashree, I wanted to ask you that in order to be seen as a purpose-driven brand, many have started picking up social issues and causes in their content narratives. in this journey, so many of them even get trolled. So can brands even have a foolproof content plan that doesn't harm consumer sentiments and invite trolls?
I'm so glad you asked that question. I saw it on the list and I was like, yeah, thank you. I remember when I came back, I think 2019 is when I moved to Bombay for this role from Singapore. Shailja, I think we need to catch up and talk about all the stuff that you have done for Singapore. I'm like, yeah, I love all that. I remember, and Brand New Media, I think I've worked with them back in my Singtel days, I think, yeah.
I think I met you
yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah, so that's where I was like, this is very familiar. See, Akansha, you have made old friends meet up again. So to answer your question, I remember coming back, and I think that was the year where everyone wanted to adopt a purpose, right? Suddenly, like a social cause or a purpose, right? I mean, call me old school. I think it helps for a brand to be rooted in purpose. But my kind request has always been to be authentic about it, right? If you don't have a purpose, the suggestion is not to adopt one suddenly because it's fashionable too. Because I think, like everybody on this stellar panel has said, because of social media, like Mansi said, anyone from here to San Fran has the ability to comment on what you're doing, right? People can see through you in a jiffy. So if you're going to be inauthentic about your purpose, you will get called out. So the reasons brand get trolled, and I'll come to that in a bit, is because they picked up social causes they had no agency to comment and pick up or adopt, right? So purpose is a very deep thing. All of us have worked with purpose-driven brands, are working with purpose-driven brands, and it means various things to various brands. Some of it comes across maybe not as deep in their brand communication. For example, Unilever, my ex-company, lives and breathes it in many of the things. Sustainability is a big purpose for them, right? So it keeps coming out in all of the things that they do, down to their packaging, down to everything that they do. For some other brands that I've worked for, it's probably 2 or 3 really big initiatives in a year. But I think what you rightly pointed out is, in the past couple of years, it's become fashionable because it gets you those sort of community spikes thanks to social media. I think that's where the trolling happens. And I think to have a foolproof plan, you need to go back to where you began. You need to go back to what your purpose really is. And that's where you need to be ruthless about what you will not do. Right. So I'll give you my own experience. In the past, not in my current role, but in the past, many a time the teams have come to me and said that there is this really big social cause that's happening. Should we not participate? The question is, do you have, as a brand, the agency or the gravitas to participate in that social cause? That's the first question to ask, right? Secondly, if you do participate, will you have the authenticity to be seen as someone who is fit to participate in that conversation? Thirdly, is it going to be, like Mansi said, a two-way conversation versus here's me telling you my take on this social issue, right? This is me as a brand talking down to you and telling you what's my take on the social issue. Fourthly, if you are going to, if it's a tick, tick, tick on the first 3 questions, then fourthly, by all means, to have a foolproof plan, remember that it's called a social cause for a reason. It's not about you, the brand, it's about them. So if you are going to do it, the last and the most important thing to remember is make it about the social cause. I know you will die to put your brand at the end of it. And like Mansi said, make your brand ambassador hold it, or there'll be a subtle integration here. And God knows if there isn't, then everyone's going to come after you and saying, itne paise spend kar diye, lekin kya kara isme? Isme to koi direct integration hi nahi kara. And you're like, how do I explain this to you? Yeah. But that's where the ingenuity of the idea has to come in, where your purpose is so deeply integrated that you necessarily don't need that end frame to say who this is about. But if your purpose isn't strong to start with as a brand, hence my first question, hence the question of agency, then you're doing it just for likes and shares, which is okay. You can do it. But then don't be afraid, like Mansi said, of this trolling. The trolling comes with it. then you signed up for it. Then this is moment marketing. Then it's not a social cause. Let's call it what it is what I would say.
And also, I think if a brand is picking up a social cause in the marketing, they should also be doing something on ground, not just create a video for
100%. But but that's the thing that didn't happen when I moved back in 2019. I was like, okay, so you made a video, but after that, what did you do?
And consumers can see that. They're not stupid.
So, and that's what the last thing I would say is the curtains between the consumers and the brands have moved up. Social media, there is no curtains. I will say whatever the hell I want to you, because that's why you have the brand channels. I'll call you out, I'll troll you. So then you must remember that you did it. Then you invited the ire upon yourself. Hence the need for anything purpose driven. I would spend a lot of time. That's not the kind of stuff I'll approve in the shower, just to make light of it.
Sure. Yeah. Yogesh, I have still not found out one thing, and I wanted to ask you that what are is there some number to attribute to the growth of content marketing ecosystem in India? I mean, is there any estimates or predictions for 2022 as well?
I don't have any particular number. Neither do I have a crystal ball, nor do I have the skill and the wit to kind of tell the future. So it'll be difficult for me to kind of put a number, and there's no baseline, right? I think in principle, we all are saying one thing is that content marketing will only become more and more increasingly important. I think some trends are already here and will kind of accelerate. Some trends will come. So I think e-commerce is already here and will accelerate more. Social commerce is in the initial stages, and I think will accelerate more. To Shailja's point, I think content-driven commerce is something that's still not here, but I think that's something that's going to again accelerate more as we move ahead. Two things I think specifically from a video and video content point of view, I think are trends which will create more challenges and opportunities both for brands and brand owners. I think in today's time, the award space is primarily a lot of catch-up content. I think that's definitely going to see a change where you will see original exclusive award content, which I think will open up opportunities for brands to engage specifically, with the challenges that Shailja spoke about, the importance of privacy, bringing in new constraints for advertisers to reach out and target, consumers. I think exclusive original content on award is going to create an opportunity for sure. The other challenge and opportunity that I see is, as we are seeing, there is a certain set of consumers who is basically, who's moving to SVOD content, right? Different numbers. I mean, from 57 million to the latest MPA report, which says about 100 million, guesstimates. But even if you kind of take sharing into account and family viewing and to a factor of 2, we're talking anywhere between 200 to 300 million individuals, right, who are now possibly consuming more than like 2 to 3 hours a day of Netflix and the likes, and are completely in a non-advertising universe. That creates a huge challenge, I think, for brands. And I think that pie will keep increasing. How do you kind of reach out? And I think that opens up the opportunity also for brands to invest and engage in meaningful content, and or what Shailja mentioned, to get into kind of publishing their own content, creating their own channels, which helps them engage with their consumers directly. I think both these opportunities also open up. So I see these things also as we go along, gathering more momentum.
I think AVOD content will add a lot to the content marketing. Yeah. So I think we have touched upon everything that can be considered as trend for content marketing. Still, is there something that anybody of you would want to say and we haven't covered?
So one thing, I think besides the influencer marketing, there was also this really uptake in terms of consumer testimonials. Even if they're not influencers, you call them nano creators or not even nano creators, right? Just a sheer voice of average consumer is out there now on the internet, and it's a very powerful cohort which is building It's out there. It can't be ignored. We've used them for customer testimonial videos. We have utilized that as one of the brand assets, right, for content marketing. So I think that was an interesting trend to see this year, because in lockdown, what do? Either influencers are creating videos, you're doing virtual event launches, or customer testimonial videos are being created. So we looked at those as opportunities for content marketing, and that might just continue.
Sure. So there were so many learnings weaved into one discussion today, which I'm sure will set the tone for content marketing space in 2022. It was lovely to have you all here to summarize the takeaways for today's session. Community-led content creation is going to be the important trend in 2022, according to Dipashree. Focus on vernacular, influencer, and short-form content would be the key trends, according to Manasi. And Shailja emphasized that push marketing is not going to work, especially in the content space. Social commerce led by social video and social media is going to be big. Content marketing using online gaming is something to watch out for the next year, she said. And Dipashree strongly believes that if you are able to create seamless content experiences, your consumer is most certainly going to love it. Behave like a marketer when you are strategizing, but don't be a marketer when you're rolling it out. While rolling out your content strategy, you have to think like a consumer. And Yogesh spoke about the importance of customer experience in content marketing, upskilling content teams, and there should be workshops and sessions and all. And he also emphasized on long-term agency and brand partnerships. Thank you, everybody, for joining me for this session. Do join us tomorrow at 3 p.m., where we will have Masters of the Trade share words of wisdom on maximizing ROI through big-ticket content properties. And the day after tomorrow, which is 16 December, we'll have marketing professionals from the startup world talk about how they go about creating cost-effective content marketing strategy. Lastly, I would also like to extend my invitation to the panelists and the viewers to join us for the MTV presents BuzzInContent Awards 2021, powered by News Nation on December 17th at 5 p.m., where we will not just only be celebrating awards and winners, but also be launching India's first book on branded content. Until then, goodbye. Thank you, my panelists. Thank you for taking our time for this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you so much, Akansha. Thank you, everyone. Great
Bye.
meeting you. Bye.
Bye.
मिशन कंट्रोल कम इन मिशन कंट्रोल आई कैन हेयर यू हमें आगे से लेफ्ट जाना है राइट जाना है आपका राइट हमारा राइट हेलो मिशन कंट्रोल ब्रो लॉस्ट कांटेक्ट विद मिशन
व्हाट्स अप माय फैम तो आज हमारी स्पेसशिप अटक चुकी है हमें यहाँ से लेफ्ट जाना चाहिए राइट प्लीज पुट इट डाउन इन द कमेंट्स एंड
वो वाईफाई डेटा तू खा रहा है पर्सनल काम के लिए ऑफिस का कनेक्शन ओह
ब्रो आई हैव टू ना सोशल मीडिया पे थोड़ी सी स्पॉन्सर कमिटमेंट्स है
अच्छा तो तू फ्रीलांस करता है
ऑफ कोर्स ब्रो इस एस्ट्रोनॉट की सैलरी में मेरा कुछ होगा
अच्छा ब्रो तो ये लाइव स्ट्रीम कैसे करते हैं मुझे भी सिखा दे
वाईफाई का पासवर्ड चेंज करना बंद कर दे
तेरे पैसे नहीं वो टैक्स पेयर्स के पैसे हैं
फिक्र है कि ये आसमां सच सुने जमी को सौंपा जाए इंसाफ हौसलों की ऊंची उड़ान हो और हो ईमानदारी की बात फिक्र है कि हर शख्स की आवाज शामिल हो जीत सिर्फ आंकड़ों की नहीं दिलों की हो निभाने हर भरोसा रखने उम्मीद रोशन खबरों की बेमिसाल मशाल थामे आपके साथ था है और रहेगा न्यूज नेशन।